Human Revolution.
Natürlich, das heißt auch eine DSX und nicht Ding.
Hello and welcome to the tank review of the Panther A, which is the German rank 4 battle rating 6.0 medium tank. And medium tank is kind of bizarre. It's more of a medium heavy tank intermediate armor wise. And I think it is also one of the best looking tanks or medium tanks in the game. And I really like the design. I also like to drive this tank, but I do not like to fight in this tank. Now, this might sound a bit strange, but it will be all come clear. It will all come clear. Oh my god, I forgot to speak English here, like I usually do. So, the Panther A is also one of the most iconic tanks of the Second World War, and it's to be expected to perform really well in the game, as it was famous for long-range one-shotting, kills, and its overall strength. Well, in the game, this tank, yeah, I think there is one big thing that lets it down, and that might be the surprising fact overall. It's the gun together with the ammunition. But let's begin with the armor, and we see that the upper plate is relatively strong for a medium tank. 80mm, slow backwards at 55 degrees, lets bounce off most normal shells that get fired at you. Just a Russian 122mm, German long 88s, and the American long 90mm will go through, as well as heat and APDS, but you will not face them so often. Okay, APDS from the British tanks, but yeah. The lower plate is a weak spot, just 60mm, despite heavy sloping of 56 degrees. Under the right circumstances, just about 110mm thick, depending on the exact angle. Yeah, that's a weak spot. The turret is worth talking a bit more about. 100mm here, together with the 100mm here, we have certain areas of overlay that get to 200 or even over 200mm of thickness. The upper and lower bar, while being thinner, are sloped, so yeah, stuff might bounce. The problem is here that when you hit at certain parts here, you have a shot trap. That means your shell ricochets off here and goes to the very thin tank roof and might just do a lot of damage on the inside, and even one-shotting when it's an APHE shell. This shot trap is removed on the or on the following Panther G, where there is no rounding here. You also have this big cupola, which is really big, 80mm. It's a good target for APHE shells, but nothing else. You will kill the commander. The side, just 40mm thick, and also here behind the tracks and the road wheels, 40mm. You have some Schürzels, but they really don't help. It's slightly angled here, but it doesn't help. You have some additional tracks here and on the turret, and you have 45mm of turret armor, so that's not too bad, too good. as well as it is a huge target. So from the side, this tank is hard to miss. Also, the rear and the rear of the turret are not very spectacular. Now, all those tracks look cool and they help a little bit. The problem is you can't rely on them helping you, and also they are a late tier upgrade. So yeah, the additional armor. Yeah, they might help you from big from big HE shells or HESH shells, but you know, when you get hit by a KV2 shell, the big shell just detonates and sends shrapnels right through. I have one clip right here that shows how KV2s just don't give a shit about your armor. So, yeah, let's have a look at the inside, and we can see that we have the transmission in the front with the engine together with the fuel tanks sitting in the back, which tend to explode really often. Then we also have a lot of ammunition throughout the entirety of the tank, literally everywhere. You actually have a damn hard time missing ammunition, and you know, you have to store those 79 shells somewhere. Now, we also have a quite unique crew arrangement, not for German tanks, but in its how it works in the battle. We have the machine gunner and the driver in the front compartment of the tank, and they are a really long distance away from the gunner and the commander and the loader. Sorry about that. And the speciality is that the gunner sits really low, so even when this tank gets penetrated from the front, the gunner just might survive. I think on the Panther D and G it's different, if I'm not mistaken, and the other commander sits really high. So when you penetrate the cupola, you might give this guy a headshot. And what I mean by a special crew arrangement, it's not just the gunner, but even when you get penetrated here through the turret by a 122mm shell, and it detonates here, it kills the crews in the turret, no question. But if you are low on ammo or you have luck and the shrapnels do not ignite the ammunition, it's a really long way, even for the shrapnels of a 122mm shell, to kill both of those guys. So you might survive. And that is really annoying for Russian tanks because they rely on their one-hit capabilities. Now, yeah, but Russians, they just go through here as long as I mentioned, German 88s, they just can't penetrate here if they're not bouncing, because there's also a decent chance of bouncing. So, what about the mobility? Well, and in fact, this tank is quite mobile for a tank of this size. It's a really tall tank. First of all, we have nearly 30 horsepower per ton in arcade and around about 14 in realistic. So for a 44.8 ton monster, it goes quite around with 1,334 horsepower. And also the top speed is quite nice. And also the low speed maneuverability is not too shabby, to be honest. Together with the good turret rotational speed of 25.5 degrees, you can theoretically brawl. But remember, your sight is really weak. The big Achilles heel of this tank is the reverse gear, which is pathetically bad. This tank is actually famous for having such a pathetically bad reverse gear. 4 kilometers an hour, really bad. And also, you are heavy and you're fast, and your brakes are not good enough to stop you in time. So you might just overshoot cover, you can't reverse in time, you get killed by a shot in the side, something like that. Also, the suspension is really, it feels nice to drive in this tank, but to shoot on the move or to even stop and aim takes a long while. You rock forwards and backwards and forwards again and backwards again, and just when you think you then can aim, you rock again, and that just throws off your aim. So yeah, the gun elevation speed is not too great. Let's have a look at the modifications. Go for the protection and firepower line first, and then go for the mobility upgrades first, then go for the engine, and you actually must not let out the suspension and brake system. Stock, this tank is just like a monkey ride thing. I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't feel glued to the ground like T-34s. And yeah, I think that's letting this tank a little bit down. Now, the other part that lets this tank down is the firepower. Yes, the firepower lets this tank down. You can research an APCR shell, but it's first of all a tier 4 upgrade, and it's just usable against other German tanks, so you have to play arcade to make this shell usable. And then you have APCBC, APHE shell, the Panzergranate 3942, and I'm really disappointed about this shell. By far, it has the least high explosive filling. 28.9 grams of TNT equivalent is pathetically bad. Let's compare this to a few other tanks at this battle rating. The T-3485 features 81.6 grams of TNT equivalent. That's 3 times, and that's on the shell that can penetrate 145 millimeters of armor. I would gladly, exchange for that shell, despite having a good penetration of 187 millimeters on this Panzergranate 3942. The HE shell, by the way, is not worth talking about. So the T-44 does feature 74.8 grams of TNT equivalent, but can nearly penetrate 160 millimeters of armor. And again, I would gladly exchange those two shells. The T-25 has a significantly longer reload, but of 9.1 seconds compared to the 7.4 for an ace crew here. But it features 5 times the high explosive filling, and that's a really good shell, despite just being able to penetrate 165 millimeters of steel. But it doesn't matter, because the shell also tends to be one of the shells that bounces so much. It just bounces so hard. And I don't know. This shell is pathetically weak in its destructive power. And then the gun itself is also pretty inaccurate. It's one of the most inaccurate guns in the game that I witnessed. There are howitzers that feel more accurate than this gun, and that's quite an insult. I witnessed this with the long 88, with this long barrel 75, and also especially in a 10.5 centimeter Tiger, that the accuracy is pathetically bad for guns that are supposed to be very strong at distance. And so yeah, it even doesn't have a faster reload than the Russian 85mm guns or even the German 88. Therefore, it features exactly the same reload, and that's letting this tank down. So how to play this tank? Well, use your fantastic acceleration and speed to get into flanking positions. Try to get hull down where you have really short ways to reverse. Try to get side shots into the enemy and actually aim for critical parts. The following gameplay you will see shows you how it can go all right, but it also shows the limitations of this tank. So now, I picked the gameplay from Mostock for numerous reasons. It was by far the most successful in the gaming session of this day for getting footage for the Panther. It also features Mostock, which is a map that has its ups and downs, literally. But I think in this game mode, from this side, I have a good chance. There is one position where I'm going where I can snipe very easily, so I can use my long range gun, but as we saw, it's not the perfect gun. I really don't get engaged that often, so I don't have put my armor to the test. I can use my speed to its full advantage, and you can see this tank really drives fast. It's really fast. It's not because it's arcade. This tank is fast. yes, there are faster tanks, but you know, you don't expect this tank to be so fast. How often did I say fast? Very often. Yeah. So, I'm getting here into this position, and I don't make the mistake of stopping here. Too many enemies would have a clean shot at me, so I just simply continue driving until I'm in a situation where I feel confident. I take the first shot at this T-34 57, and you just can see the damaging effect of the gun. Just look at the damage effect. Yes, I blew up the fuel tank and killed the rest of the crew. Then there is the Sherman. I have a perfect shot in the rear and trip the engine. And then I can take my time for a perfect shot at the turret, but I switch target to the IS-1, which again I just injured the crew and set the engine on fire, and he gets killed by somebody else. So I try to reposition. I see on the radar that somebody is flanking me, and that's the bad thing about this position. I don't like being engaged a lot, so I have to defend on my terms. I see this 76mm Jumbo Sherman, and I snap him through the side. And then I bounce off the T-34. Yes, he was slightly angled, but then he gets my gun. I reverse into cover, and I reverse into cover in a way that if the enemy tries to rush me, he has to go a long way, where he then gets out of cover and can be sniped by my team, which my team happily did here. They put so many rounds into him that he felt not very comfortable retreating, and I rush him here. And this is a very aggressive move. Don't mistake this for good gameplay. This is a very aggressive rush. If anybody of the enemy team would have paid attention here, my game would have ended right here. And that's another bounce. That's how bad the shell is. I ram this guy a little bit, and then the first shell finds its way into the turret, taking out the commander and the loader. He seems like to be on crew repair, so the next shell going into his tank puts him out of his misery. Those two tanks absolutely ignore me. Bad for the Tiger, and I machine gun this AAA truck to death. So, double kill. I had a mission going, so that's the mission fulfilled. I just have to win the game right now for 80 war bonds, finishing off casually a Tiger from behind. Tigers are my favorite targets. They're boxy, you don't really bounce from them, and they die relatively easy. I put a second one into this Sherman and kill him. That's my 7th kill. It seems like this tank is unstoppable, right? Yeah, that's the exception. And that was a very lucky sniping shot, quite unusual. Another side shot into this Sherman, and I'm outright killing him, killing obviously the crew. It seems like the kill cam was a bit laggy here. Then I see a Su-152 aiming at me. I snapshot his track, and he snapshots my track. But this is the advantage that I have over a Su-152. I have the better reload, but watch the damage. I kill the driver and the gunner. Okay, I hit the lower plate. Then I aim for the flat side. Not enough damage. The shrapnels are not going wide enough. I repair my tracks. I'm not taking my chances. The fight is not on my terms. I want to get into cover and to also decap this capping circle. I want a few more kills, so yeah. But this is the point where I'm really challenging the enemy team. But they are under a lot of pressure. With taking the position on this ridgeline previously, I really supported my team a lot, so they could go over those, over those points where usually the enemy team would have sniped them. But by me sniping them from the side, I just took out too many tanks in a very short time frame, so that my team could go into the offensive. And that's the charm of Mostock and this position, in my opinion. It's a bit unfair, as the opposite side doesn't have quite the same position, and the symmetry of the map doesn't support it. That was a Panther 4 that was just sniped before I could pull the trigger. And then I'm engaging this M6. Good, nice hit through the weak spot of him, killing a lot of stuff inside. Another SU-152, and again the damaging effect. That was right into the ammunition, which just went yellow. Then he snipes my gun, and that's so annoying. And yeah, then the bomber kill secures this M6, obviously. And I'm repairing here my gun. And this is why, you know, repair is so important. To this point, this tank can take damage, and it takes a while before he goes down. But you really need good repair crews. Now, seeing a KV-2, and I gladly take out his cannon breach and the commander. And this shell goes in again. I bounce a shell. Not sure from what. This Panther 4 gets one-shotted, so that's the weakness of German tanks from the front. You don't need very powerful guns to one-shot them. And another shell, yeah, damaging the already damaged gun breach furthermore. Getting the side of the turret, and then you can again see how little damage this gun does. And you rarely blow up ammunition. You really have to go for the crew, and you can see how difficult it is to take down a KV-2, even with numerous penetration. And then finally the ammunition goes off after penetrating through it and then finally receiving some shrapnels. That's kind of the end of the game. Now I'm going full in, and again you can see the nice speed of the tank and actually somewhat the bad brakes. And then I set this Ostman on fire. I try to snipe the commander of this Hellcat, you know, dishing out as much damage as I can. And again, I couldn't finish the Ostwind. I get him finally, but sadly the kill doesn't count anymore. So, that was the gameplay. Let's have a quick look at the post-battle result screens. And we can see that for 10 kills and 5 assists and 11 critical hits, I got 65,875 silver lines and 4,388 research points. Now, the amount of assists for the kind of shots I had tells you a lot about the gun's performance. If you still don't believe me, well, play the tank yourself. So, yeah, so I'm not really impressed. Then also I was first in team with 3,313 score points. So that's the Panther A for you. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give this video a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more, and see you next time on the battlefield.